I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked. On today's show, Dr. Michele Borba returns to give us part 2 on how to build brave and resilient kids no matter their age. After our conversation, I'll be talking about breathing. Yes, breathing, and its impact on that brave and resilient kid. And you too. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Madeline Blair, and this is Unlocked, a show all about activating the resilient leader in you. Talked about 3 of the 7 characteristics of the brave, resilient kid. If you watched, you recall that the kids we talked about were any age from 1 to 18. In fact, as I looked again at the material, the strategies may change a bit, but the rest applies to kids of any age. As this is part 2, we will give a quick summary of the background information so that even those who saw the show can be refreshed. And those who didn't yet see the show, it's always available, by the way, on E360 TV or my YouTube channel, Madeline Blair. But those who didn't yet see the show will have enough background to understand today's conversation. All right. Well, I'm not going to summarize on Michele Borba's background because I want you to know who she is, even if you've heard it before. She's an educational psychologist, parenting expert, and former classroom teacher who has spoken to over 1 million parents and educators on 28 countries. I think she beats my record, too, on the number of countries. I'm impressed. She is recognized for her solution-based strategies on raising resilient, empathetic children and has appeared over 150 times on the Today Show and featured in media outlets including the New York Times, Dr. Phil, Washington Post, Time, and Dateline. She is also an award-winning author who has published 26 books. Beat me on that one. Wow. Translated in 30 languages, and it include Don't Give Me That Attitude. I love the title. Building Moral Intelligence, and the last one, also love this title, Unselfie. But of course, the one that we're going to be talking from today is Thrivers. The surprising reasons why some kids struggle and others thrive. All right. Michele Borba, welcome back.
Oh, I'm so glad to be back. Thank you so much. I'm sitting there looking at your bookcase. We could have the same books. I got that entire last one. We're so aligned. Thank you, Madeline.
Oh, you are so welcome. You are so welcome. Well, as I said to the audience, we need to give them kind of some background, grounding, so that even if you watched last time, it kind of refreshes you. So why don't you take a minute and put in place what you think would be a good start for us before we jump into those additional 4 characteristics.
I think the most important thing is what the heck is a thriver and why did I come up with that term? Actually, it was teens who said, we're just not thriving. And I looked at that and said, why? Is this, we just feel like we're never enough. And everybody always gives us like, we're not doing this right or we're not doing this right. And nobody's helping us learn how can we flourish or just get on better in life. So once I looked at that, I went back to the old research, Madeline, and I think, again, we're probably reading the same research. Phenomenal research has been done in just major universities that started to look at, instead of why kids aren't making it, why kids are making it. What a great flip. Instead of always intervening, how do we prevent? And we're not doing that nearly enough. And what they did is they looked at cohorts of children who, despite extraordinary adversity, I mean, think of the worst things that you can imagine happening to a kid, from homelessness to sexual abuse to just trauma and horror, they bounced back. Now, Ann Manston Emmy Warner looked at that, Norm Gormese, and said the why. And they discovered a commonality that had nothing to do with DNA or zip code. Nothing. Nothing to do with the kid's GPA either, or test scores. Instead, it was three things, and I call them three Ps. Now, they don't have to have all, but the more you have, the better. The first is you, a protective person who is there for the child, who says, you got this, I'm always here. And it doesn't have to be the mom or the dad. They discovered teachers were very highly always correlated. Grandparents were highly, highly at the top of the list, but that's a person whose calm presence made it. The second thing was a place. Some place the child could go to. Very often it wasn't the home. It was a group of kids in East LA told me it was the Boys and Girls Club. If we didn't get there of just feeling like we could breathe in a place, and they were always there welcoming us, we wouldn't have made it. The third one is the one I hope we talk about a lot today is protective buffers. You're not born with them, but we can teach them. And when we teach them to our kids, what happens that if we teach them enough and we keep teaching and teaching and teaching by helping them get practice until they become automatic, the child can use them when the challenge hits. Now, there's an array of dozens and dozens. Don't teach them all or your kid will just tune out. But instead, you look at what does my child need right now at the age or stage he's at? And a wonderful thing is don't teach it because Alex, he's the one with the problem, but teach it as a family or teach it as a classroom, because kids also learn by seeing it from others and realizing we can all do it together. When the kid can do it without you, that's when you give yourself huge accolades, because he'll be able to use it the rest of his life. It's a different world, Madeline. It's more challenging. It's more accelerated. And you don't know what's coming down the pike. So that's why we've got to just tweak our parenting a little bit.
Okay. I love the idea of not just focusing on the child, but looking at how to affect a whole group.
Yeah.
Because then they become in a way peers that can reinforce each other, because they can call it out. And kids are good at that. They're very good at observing things. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one of the best things, the peers that I saw, we're always worried about, how do I get my kids off of social media? One of the most amazing things, Mary Louise Academy, what they did is have just a delete day. And the delete day was all the kids went into their tech class, and each one of them deleted all their social media presence. And because the rest of the kids were doing it as well, they were much more conducive to, okay, let's do it together. I saw that over and over with kids in learning some of the skills we're talking about today. When they saw their peers up on an assembly doing it and the kids were teaching, that was glorious. I'll tell you one other thing was my favorite thing in the entire world. Temecula Elementary. They have Thriver squads, Madeline. It's a group of kids during lunchtime. What they do with the counselor is they video the skill of the week or the month. And then when I walk into the classroom, I've never seen more engaged kids looking at the screen because they're watching their peer who's teaching the self-control lesson of the day.
Well, they're being just like the professional football teams.
Yes.
Where they watch what they've done. And
yes.
That's fabulous.
Isn't it? Thriver squads. We can do that in our home. Let's have Thriver squads, our neighborhood Thriver squads.
Yeah.
Just reinvent the wheel and we've got it.
Fabulous. Well, before we jump into the detail, I really would like you to do just a quick refresh of bravery and resilience. So let's just talk about those two things so people know what we're trying to strive for.
We're trying to raise a child who says, I got this. And it's not a superhero that's going to do the deadly things that are dangerous, but it's a child who, when faced with a challenge, is able to say, I'm not going to quit and give up and raise the white flag. He's got a mindset that said, I can do this, because he's been parented a little bit differently. He's been parented not by the parent who always rescues and hovers and says, don't worry about it, sweetie pie, I'll do it for you. It's a parent who says, okay, let's do the first step. Now you keep going. I'm going to step back. And when you keep stepping back because your child begins to see and recognize my parent believes in me, he's more likely to just get that agency, which I think is, Madeline, the highest correlation of a child who's resilient. It's self-efficacy, not a parent or a teacher or a coach doing it for me. It's a mindset that said, I'll do it. I got it.
Mm-hmm. As you were describing that, where you have to step away, step away, step away.
Step back. Keep
Yeah.
stepping, keep stepping.
Yeah.
In fact, watch your footwork. We talked a little bit about that last time, but are you, anytime there's an activity, are you sitting there in front of the child, pulling him to do it? Or are you sitting there side by side, doing it with him? Once your child can do it without you, now you step back,
Step back.
step behind, and let your child, oh my gosh, the moment comes when your child pulls you.
Correct. That is exactly what happens. I watched that in my daughter, who pulled me on forward. Yeah.
And it's not easy, and it doesn't going to happen overnight. That's the other thing that from all of today, we'll begin talking about a lot of things you can do, but it takes a lot of practice, a lot of repetition until a new habit becomes automatic. We're going to be talking about strengths that we know are highly correlated, says the science, to children who can handle the adversity, who can also, by the way, it's not just handling the adversity. These same strengths are going to help your child in terms of performance, learning in a classroom. They also help your child in terms of relationships with each other. They improve mental health and well-being and get your child the job. That's what the research says. So let's just add it to our parenting agenda, and we've got it.
Yeah, we all worry about that child getting the job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have to support themselves at some point. Yeah. I think at this point we have a sense of what we mean now, of what we're trying to get. I want us to do just one more thing before we jump into those 7 characteristics and the 4 we're going to talk about. When you actually see a child, and I say a child, and it could be a 16-year-old or whatever,
or your 43-year-old spouse.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What are the different ways that child's bravery, I'll call it the bravery, how do we see that in them?
First of all, you see confidence level. You'll see a child who's pleased with themselves. They don't need the script, that's one more thing, sweetie pie. That was so glorious. And here's the reward for it. They don't need it and they don't want it because they've already internalized it themselves. Their posture very often improves a little bit. You'll see the child more eager to keep trying the next idea. You'll see them sometimes going, no, that's okay. I got this. But I think the first thing is you'll definitely see confidence improving. You'll see their 7 strengths that we'll be talking about. Let's just review them real quickly. Confidence is the first one, but empathy is the other one. You'll see that because they're less likely to feel so overwhelmed of I can't do it, when they feel they can, you'll feel them be able to more likely to reach out. Stress goes down, so you'll be able to open up towards others. Your empathy will go up. Self-control is number 3. That's highly correlated to this because you'll see that they're not so jittery. They're actually a little bit more calm and controlled. You just see that there's a demeanor change. And if you tune that in, all of a sudden you'll see this child that just looking, he's tuning into what's going on around. The integrity piece sets in. That's a harder one to see, but you'll notice that he's adopted it and maybe he's doing it because he realizes your family mantra is responsibility. So he's doing it. He's not saying it. It's a verb and not the noun. Curiosity. I love this one because I didn't realize when I was writing Thrivers how much curiosity is so key to resilient. But you'll see a child more open. Instead of tuning out, no, I don't want to try that. You'll see them looking in like, what do you mean, Mom? Well, let me try that. I don't care what the age is. There's an openness. And once they open, the creativity sets in. Not that they're going to become Albert Einsteins, but they're just open to possibilities. Yeah. They're more likely to be the brainstormer and coming up with the plan B. So they're not overwhelmed with it. The creativity floors them. Perseverance. You'll see them working a little harder, a little longer without reinforcement. They're just more eager. They get into what, University of Chicago says, the flow state. They're happier because they found their strengths. They know they can do it. And when confidence sets in and perseverance set in, they keep on going without the reminders. And they're also more optimistic and hopeful. And that's, I think, what is instilling that confidence is that hope is it's going to be okay. I can do this. Now you put all those 7 together. Oh my gosh, what an incredible opportunity, but that is not going to happen overnight. This is a long-term process. Maybe this is your womb to tomb parenting plan for your child or for each other. Because when you model those 7, they're going to help you in terms of your employment, your relationship, your interaction with your child. It'll help you as well as your child flourish. And that's what we're looking for. How do we flourish?
Yeah. I I love the fact that curiosity, how you describe it, because in my research, that was one of the characteristics of highly resilient adults.
Yes.
I studied adults. They were not just curious; they were insatiably curious,
Yes. Yes.
constantly pushing the edges of things. They just wanted to know. And you're right. It's so that when they get hit with something, they say, "Okay, what are the possibilities here?" And they not only know possibilities, they even gin up new ones. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we promised last time we would talk about the remaining 4, which begins with self control.
Yeah. If we were to do anyone, I would say all of us need to work on self control. In fact, 77,000 American pediatricians and mental health professionals across the United States of America signed a form that said, our children's mental health and well being is in jeopardy. If we could do anything, let's help them learn how to cope with life. Now, that doesn't mean it's a lecture. It means we're going to show them. And how we teach self-control, it is teachable, is a few techniques. The first one is please mirror calmness. If you mirror it, meaning your child will catch it. Maybe the first idea when you see your child get on edge, take a breath yourself and calm down. Don't react, but respond. And it may be a thing where you need to just start working on that yourself, because our kids can put us on edge. I remember a mom who came to one of my workshops. She said, oh my gosh, I'm listening to you and I know what I'm doing. I thought my kid was the problem. I'm the problem and I'm causing the problem. She said, I got this solved. So I said, what are you going to do? She said, well, I'm getting myself a stack of books. I'm putting it in my bathroom. And when I really need to figure out how to get from reacting to responding, I'm going to just do a signal in our family that goes, it's a calm down signal. Just my hand goes out. And it means to everybody in the family, you can give me the signal. I'm going to go sit in the bathroom. I'm going to take some slow, deep breaths. This was a 2-day workshop. Oh, Madeline, you'll love it. The mother came back the following day. And the first thing the kid said, what workshop did you go to, Mom? Oh, my gosh, everything has changed in this family. Only because the mom was calm and she was mirroring it back to ourselves. Now, just a little point on that one, and I don't mean to ping on the guilt, but Harvard also just came out a study that was just, they found that our own stress level is now higher than our children's stress level, which means we're mirroring the stress. And if your child is edgy, chances are you're on edge. So let's just look at, Madeline, how you teach self-control to your kids so that you can put the brakes on and self-regulate when the challenge comes. Here's another reason why. When that challenge comes, you better be able to put on the brakes, because you can't think when you're in distress. You won't be able to solve the problem. You'll make the wrong decision because cognitive abilities go down. That's why self-control is so critical. Now, other than let's just be calm ourselves in the family, another thing you may want to do, and you can do this with little kids, you're going to be the monitor. With bigger kids, you can point it out, is start helping everybody in the family identify, including yourself, what your stress signs look like. Everybody's stress signs are different.
Oh, give me some examples.
We'll sign with, I got a little guy in one of my classrooms. I taught special ed. He was always on edge and I knew he was going to blow because his feet would go like this. And I started to really start to take a deep breath. And that was my clue. His feet would move. I see a teen who weaves back and forth and starts grinding his teeth. Tween girls said, our hands start to get sweaty. So we go like this a lot. Oh, and other kids, it could be for yourself. You'll notice your rapid breathing. You'll see your child start to go like this real fast. And he's actually breathing to the point where it's so fast, you can't think when you're in distress like that. Each child's stress signs are differently. You want proof? Go home and watch your child. First of all, they'll be able to tell you your stress signs. Mom, your eyes go like that as soon as before you get mad. I know when you're going to get angry. They know ours. They don't know theirs. The second thing is tune in a little more and do a couple of other things. Madeline, I swear this is just, if you've got a child who's really in heightened stress, get a calendar. You've got one. Don't let him see you doing this, but start pointing on the calendar the when and the where he's most likely to get upset. And you will see a marked pattern. It's always 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesdays. What's happening? That's the time test. And the teen is really nervous about it. That means you can help him more on figuring out that time test, not at 7:30 in the morning, but long before. Or maybe it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon for your little one. And you discover, oh my gosh, they didn't get the nap that day. You'll see a pattern. That's the first thing that helps. The second thing is start for the older child, pointing out calmly and quietly. I noticed that right before you do this, here's what you do with your hands. Or you start going like this, or you start going like this with your feet. Now have your child point out yours and everybody else's in the family. So it's not a, you're the one that's causing the problem. When kids begin to know their stress signs, little ones, you're going to have to keep being the monitor. I'm talking the preschoolers and early elementary. But as they get a little older, if they can identify their stress signs, now they can do all the techniques we're going to share with you. Because the next thing kids say they want is somebody to show them what to do instead. And a teen said one other thing that was absolutely brilliant. You know, everybody's teaching that meditation stuff. That works for them. We got to figure out what works for us. So give us a range of stuff. Then we figure out what to do so we can use it anytime in any place. Bravo. Yeah. The best one I've seen anywhere, to keep on talking, but I worked on a lot of Army bases, Madeline. And when I worked with Navy SEALs, the Navy SEALs, I mean, talk about the adversity those people face. Unbelievable. But they said, we do something that you should teach kids because it has helped us keep our cognitive abilities up and our courage way up so we can get through some really tough times. I said, what do you do? He said, well, we spend a lot of time helping each other figure out that you're starting to get stressed. So we identify our stress signs and we point it out to each other. Then immediately when the stress comes, when we know it and we can start to feel it, we tell ourselves, calm down. Or we've got some kind of a mnemonic that we say inside our head, like keep chill or calm down or you got this. And then we take a 1-2 breath over and over. It's deep from our abdomen. Like they said, riding up an elevator, tell a kid, like, then get to the top. Oh, this is so, I mean, I feel like I'm so ready to pass out. I'm so relaxed because I've been practicing it. Then I get to the top and I slowly let it out. But the exhale must be twice as long as the inhale to maximize the breath. Does one work? No. But if you keep doing them over and over again, it's brilliant. I was in a classroom with 6-year-olds. The teacher said right after lunch, their basket case. But I taught them their stress signs. And I asked the 6-year-olds, how do you know you're stressed? Well, my head starts to go like this. My feet start to go like this. Each kid knew their stress signs. I said, so what do? The entire class yells out, you just breathe. And the teacher said, show Dr. Borba. They get on the floor. They lie on the floor so they can feel their backs on the floor. And then the second thing that I love is each one put a beanbag on their tummy. She got them at garage sales. She said they were breathing too fast, that they were hyperventilating. So it was breathe up, 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 up. No. Look, Froggy's scared. That's the beanbag. No. Go real slow. Oh, good. You got it. Now slowly let it out. Froggy wants slow. I'm telling you, Madeline, within about 5 minutes, the class was asleep. And I said, this is just absolutely brilliant. But she said the next thing is she had the kids teach their parents. So everybody was getting the slow, deep relaxation process. That's one idea. Figure out what helps your child. You can come up with calm down corners that we talked about last time, that once you identify what works for your child, you put it in a space. So when you see the child start to get edgy, now is the time to go and work on, it could be the music, or it could be one kid says, I watch a goldfish. Another kid said, I do that slow, deep breathing. If you do it in your family, what a power punch. One final thing, and then I know you're going to add on stuff because you've got it. A lot of kids don't feel the breath. So one of the easiest things you can do, whether your child is little or big, is put your back to your child's back and have them lock arms with you. Now feel me. I'm going to do the slow breath. Now they're feeling your back. Now you breathe down. And I've seen parents do that over and over again. And what happens is the kid finally gets the feel tone. The best thing teens say, they love it because we can do it anywhere and anytime right before we take the test. We do 1-2 breaths. We don't let anybody know we're doing them.
That's right.
But it really helps
They're
us.
invisible.
Invisible. Oh, those are the best strategies. That's what self-control is all about.
Wow. I love that you give these things and things are popping up in my mind. That's what I was doing when I was doing that. Because one of the things I would often say when things were becoming stressful is think, Madeline, think.
Think. And good old Aaron Beck told us that your thoughts trigger your emotions that trigger all of your physical side. So think. And that's what the Navy SEALs do. Oh my gosh, I'm starting to get stressed. Oh my gosh, tell myself I can calm down. Now take the breath.
Yeah.
And it'll erode the emotion because you're thinking through what I can do instead. You can't teach kids to do this in the middle of the exorcism. By the way, I learned that during the holidays at Walmart at the toy store aisle. And here's the kid having the exorcism because the mom's not going to buy him the toy. And she's saying, calm down, calm down. And I'm saying, it's a little late. But if you can see the buildup before, that's when you can really make a difference and maximize it.
Great. Well, it's time to move on because I want to make sure we cover all 4. Integrity
is so critical. Integrity is you inside your child's head. Self-control was essential. That's why we spent more time on it. Now you can do the rest of them easier. Integrity, one of the best things I've seen in integrity that you can do tonight. I've interviewed dozens of kids, and you'll see all the interviews in Thrivers, but I was in a Florida high school, very prestigious school, asking the teachers, is there a kid here that has integrity? Yeah. Would you go interview Amanda? She's absolutely amazing. I said, why? She says, just go interview her and find out how the heck she got that way, because I've never seen a kid with such integrity. So I walk up to her and I say, Amanda, everybody's talking about your integrity. How'd you get that way? She laughed and she said, quote unquote, it was how I was raised. So I said, okay, Amanda, fess up. How were you raised? She said, something happened when I was 5. And I'll never forget it the rest of my life. This is how powerful you can be as parents. I have 2 younger brothers and sisters, and my mom calls us into the family room. We sit on the floor. There's marking pens and posters all over. Dad said, sit down. We're going to try to figure out what kind of family we want to be remembered for. Can you imagine that? What kind of family we want to be remembered for? So we're going to brainstorm words. And there isn't any right or wrong. Mom's going to write them down till she runs out of room. Then we're going to vote. So pretty soon she said there was, empathy and kindness and compassion and honesty and all those on the board. I said, what did you choose? She said, amazing. We all chose honesty. I said, so how did you remember honesty? She laughed and she said, oh, that's the easiest thing immediately. My dad goes to the garage and starts making a big sign that says we're the Honest Duns because our last name is Duns. He puts it outside the mailbox. My mom starts saying a mantra. Remember, we're the Honest Duns. We'd be reading Wonder. Well, they were honest duns, weren't they? We'd be watching the TV. Those guys are honest duns. The last thing every single day, my mom would drop us off at school and she'd say, remember, we're the honest duns. My parents said it so much, we became it. Oh my gosh, that's exactly how you teach integrity. So my question to you is, what are you saying and doing so much that your children become it? Or I dare you. Go home tonight, sit your kids down and say, what's the most important thing we stand for in this family? And if your kids can't tell you what it is, it means you're not repeating it enough. In my family, it was kindness and actions. And to this day, I've got older kids. My youngest kid will come to the door, knock and go, actions, Mom. It's actions. I'm working on my actions. I'm going, all right, you got it. Repeat it, repeat it, repeat it.
Fabulous. That's such an easy one. Gosh.
Yeah, but we're not doing it, are we?
No. But I love the fact that you gave us some very specific ways in which we can do it.
Yeah.
Well, and that will feel uncomfortable probably trying to get words from your kids.
Well, I think the first thing is sit down right this minute. And here's the thing, the takeaway from today's session is leave and say, what's the one thing I want instilled in my children when they're 40 or 45 or
Yep.
50? What do I hope they take away from being in my family?
Yep.
Have you stopped to think that through? Because many parents have not.
Yeah.
And parenting goes by really quickly. They do grow up.
They
There's
do.
the thing. There's an outcome there. So figure that out now. Thrivers will have dozens of other things you can do, but the first thing is be intentional about knowing what and who you are as a family.
Fabulous. Curiosity.
I love it.
My favorite word.
Curiosity is mine, and I had no idea how highly correlated it is to resilience until I saw, yeah, you have to be the openness to the idea. I think the first my way to instill curiosity, Natalie and I worked when I was writing this book by visiting some of the best places in the world who do this stuff. And I'd say, who is the place that has the best creativity and curiosity? It's the MIT Multimedia Lab.
Oh, yes.
They are producing, you talk about driverless cars to AI to everything, it's in there. So I walked in, spent the day there, and asked the director of MIT Multimedia Lab, how do you get such creativity? And he said something so profound. He said, we make failure an option here. If the kids do not fail and make a mistake, it means they're not being curious enough and thinking outside the box. And we have got to tell kids, it's okay to fail. What are you going to do differently next time? So step one in your own home, have you made mistakes okay and permissible? Are you admitting your own? It's not that you're going to be allowing the kid to just keep on failing, but they need to know it's okay, because now you can, curiosity number 2, figure out what you're going to do instead. Mm-hmm. And the way you do that, boy, the Forbes would tell you this, is sit down with your kid the next time they have a problem and vow that you will not give them the solution or the answer. Instead, tell me what's bugging you. Say it. Okay, I love that you said it, sweetie pie. Now, for little kids, you just put a piece of paper in front of you with a marking pen, and let's come up with, how many ideas can you come up with, and set a timer like it's no more than a minute. But, oh, that's one idea. That's one idea. Keep a poker face. Some of their solutions are off the chart, but that's an idea. Now stop. Which one do you feel most comfortable doing? For teens, brainstorm anytime in any place. Or are you watching the news? What's another way they could have solved that problem? Or how do you think that they could solve the climate change, which is the number one fear that kids have right now? Good. Problem solved. But one more thing. Teens say, once we come up with a solution, because our parents teach us that we can storm our brain and the answer is in there, then go one step more and say, so what's the first step you'll do? What's that new change look like? So they're able to do it in real life. Curiosity really is the first step, is realizing there's hope in your head. Come up with the solutions and don't depend on the parent to solve it for the child.
You know, listening to this, I'm thinking about the years that I spent as an organizational development person. And I always would tell the organization, the solution to your problem is in your heads. Mm-hmm. I'm not here to bring you the solution. And you would see the look of terror go across their face. You don't have the answers? I didn't need the answers. And by the time I finished working with them, they recognized it too. So this aspect about curiosity, I just love this dimension that if you build it and you really encourage it, that the options come out.
Yeah, it's a mindset that we have to do. And I warn you all, university professors are saying we are raising with the most educated group of kids we've ever had, but they're also the most risk adverse. Yeah. They're afraid to think outside the box. The term they use is excellent sheep. Now, that's disastrous for a child who's going to be a peak performer or try to do anything, because he's always doing what everybody else says, instead of thinking, what's another term? We've created such safety nets for them that we're not allowing them to realize you can do it, get outside the box. Have discussions in your own home. Have discussions that are controversial discussions, that are respectful, but ARE, assert yourself. Tell me the reason. That's R. Tell me the reason why you feel like that. And E, give me the evidence for it. Keep, again, a calm voice. But how great to have family meetings when you have respectful disagreements. And your child will be able to realize it's okay to disagree. For the child who's quiet in your home, please stick up for that kid and say, everybody in this house has equal voice. I don't care if you're an extrovert or an introvert. You have a voice. Let's speak. No, it's her turn to speak or it's his turn to speak. That's how we're going to raise a group of kids who have far greater outcomes because they're curious and they can use that creativity to solve anything that comes their way, Madeline.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I keep thinking about teams also in organizations. Yes, they're not kids anymore,
Yeah.
but these same characteristics, these same strategies really work.
Oh,
You just have to allow failure. It's
yes.
not the end of the world. Good. What did we learn from it? Now, what are the possibilities? Yeah, just very powerful. Also, it reminds me of a guest that I had on some time ago. His name is Akafuna Ngundo, and he talked about how he created in his home, and you'll love this. He created in his home a peace room, and
Oh,
in the peace room, you were allowed to say whatever was on your mind. But of course the corollary to that was that you had to listen to what other people said to you, and that ranks didn't go into the peace room. So it was everybody was equal. And he described how he actually created that in his home with his family, and that actually assisted and aided them in being, simply being. Yeah.
Madeline, I have seen that in classrooms where it's a corner and it's a peace room. I've seen that, by the way, with 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and you're looking at me like, what? It was a carpet with a line in the middle, like a bathroom mat.
Yeah.
You sit on this side, you sit on this side. No, no, no. It's her turn to talk. And it was a talking stick. Now pass it to the other.
Yeah.
What we want to do is do that so often so that we can use our cars as peace cars. Now you can state your idea. You can say the playground, any place, but you practice those skills like he's suggesting until you finally can do it without the parent. How glorious that would be. And you notice how empathy is setting into that piece as well.
That's right.
They're blending together.
That's right. Okay. Here's the last one. Perseverance.
Perseverance is what you stretch and you keep on stretching. That's the one when you keep on going and you don't quit. Now, how do you do that? Angela Duckworth's work on grit is absolutely profound. And she's discovered a few things that we've got to keep in mind. First, it's not DNA. It's how you're parented. She found, for instance, and this is Carol Dweck in her book Mindset, did the exact same thing. The first thing we do wrong is we emphasize, if there's a couple of takeaways here, stop emphasizing the end product. What did you get? Did you get the A? What was your score? Instead, the highest correlation is what a good coach does. Really good sports coaches. They instead look at, where were you yesterday? Oh, you were at 1 second. Today, you're going to go for 2 seconds. So you stretch the child for where they are, 1 step, 1 step, 1 step, 1 step. What happens is the child's going to begin to get that, what we talked about before, self-efficacy and agency, because he realizes it's effort that's pushing it. It's not his IQ. If I keep on working, whatever it is, I'll improve. Now, that said, what you're going to have to do is help the child learn if there's a stumbler. If there's something that's getting in the way that he can't figure out what to do instead, work on the stumbler. I'll give you a quick one on that one. I had 2 music teachers in my life. One of them drove me to early retirement at age 6 because he was a perfectionist. If I prayed whatever it was and I got one mistake, even if I was 1 bar from the end, I had to start all over again. He would not have made it to MIT Multimedia Lab because he was not making failure an option in my piano. Thank gosh my mother hired Mrs. Thompson, because she had a whole different strategy. She'd look at my stress level and go, oh, Michele, there's that one little stumbler there. Let's work on the one little stumbler. And we'd practice the one little stumbler over and over and over and over until she goes, now get it. Now start all over. That's what a good coach does. They don't say, give up. You might as well quit. You're kicking wrong. Instead, they say, watch me. I'm going to show you how to kick it with my foot like this. Now you try it. Practice, try it. The same with the math. The kid just rips the whole paper up. I can't do it. No, 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 no. Let's find the one thing that you're troubled at. Go that way. Emphasize what you need to go to the next step, stress, effort, not what you get. And what you'll have is a kid who's just keeps stretching the grit and the grit. Make sure that your home is also mistake friendly. So the child learns that everybody makes mistakes. You can learn from them. What am I going to do differently the next time? And that's how you instill perseverance.
Oh, I tell you, everything you're saying, I keep translating it into business,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking of how I've watched people work with new staff. Now, you talked about the fact that these skills, these resilience and courage things, are important for actually getting and empathy, particularly
Yes.
for getting work.
Yes.
I've watched them in how do they get involved and how do they really perform well. And one of the things that I've seen that really does work is when you give them a task that includes another piece that's new to them.
Ah.
And it's not one that if they fail, the business goes plop. No, that's not what you do. It's something that they can fail at. You don't tell them that, but it also stretches them. And if you do that one time after another, it's amazing how fast they develop and become professional. Because there's a difference
Oh,
between
that is
coming.
absolutely glorious because that's the whole thing on design thinking and design learning that they're doing at Stanford and across the board. In fact, I think one of the most interesting things I've ever seen in terms of a test was called the marshmallow test, and not the one on self-control, but creating towers. What they've done is they give a group of teams from business people to lawyers to grown-ups to teens to kindergartners, a few marshmallows, a few straws or just spaghetti sticks that aren't cooked, and a few pieces of tape. And they say your job is to see how fast you can build a tower without it falling. And whoever gets the tallest tower using what you have wins. Now, they've done that with over across every single age. Who wins hands down on the biggest tower? Kindergartners. Kindergartners. Now, why? I look at it and I go, I've watched videos and watched YouTube tapes on it. It's absolutely incredible. First of all, they're not overcome with the mistake. When the spaghetti breaks, another kid says, here's another piece. It's okay. It's the team building. It's the team building of getting together, realizing that all his is fun. It's a playful attitude and it's curiosity of what can we use to keep building this higher and higher and higher. It's the Marshmallow Tower Challenge. And wow, what we don't do enough is keep it playful and fun, and mistakes are okay, and use it as a team, and you will be the one who outcomes it, overshines.
That's fantastic. I love that story. I'm going to use that story.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to pull in a negative, but this is very real. We have fires in California. We have flooding in North Carolina.
Yes, we do.
And these things are. It appears as though they are going to be coming more and more.
Yes.
What can we do for? And I'm thinking of the kids. We say, okay, the child is safe, but they've lost all their toys. These are difficult times. How can we, yes, prepare them, but maybe we didn't prepare them. What can we do now?
We use Paul Slavic's research. Paul Slavic tried to figure out what do we do in order to boost children who, particularly in trauma. And he found that one of the most fascinating things is giving back, which would mean the service. Now, the biggest mistake we do, says kids, is the parent does it for the child. What do you see that's happening right now? What can we do to help another? First of all, that reduces your stress and boosts your empathy. Second of all, it boosts the curiosity because the child now has to figure out what can we do in this house that I can do that I can make a difference. And then the third thing that's absolutely critical is when you give so that you actually give it to the person. Paul Slavic says the moment the child gives it to somebody else is when he changes his identity. He begins to see, oh my gosh, I'm a difference maker. Now comes his courage and now comes his bravery because he sees himself as a giver, somebody who can make a difference in the world. That alone is absolutely extraordinary. It's a change-making philosophy, and it's empathy-based, particularly in this time and age. Please, please, during this era, show your children the goodness of people clamoring together. Show them the champions, not just the desecration, but how people in any crisis pile together and empathy sets in. And finally, let me just tell you one thing that when I was writing Thrivers, I remember being interviewed by a journalist, Madeline. This woman called me. She was very elderly. I could hear it in her voice, but she was talking about resilience until I finally heard a British accent. And I knew she was old. And I said, wait a minute, excuse me, can I just interrupt here? Because you're asking me about resilience. When did you grow up, or where did you grow up? And she said, London. I said, London, were you there during the Blitz? She said, yeah. I said, well, let's flip this. How did you get through the Blitz when every night there had to be terror? Every night you're hearing air raid sirens, you're hearing bombings, you're getting black drapes going. How did you survive it? She actually stopped and said, I don't remember any of that. I said, you don't remember the air raid sirens and the bombs dropping? She said, I remember the air raid sirens, and then I remember my parents pulling the black drapes. And from that moment on, I remember my parents starting to sing, and we started to do Ring Around the Rosie, and we started to do all these play games. And then all of a sudden in the middle of it, you could hear her start to choke up. She says, oh my God, my parents must have been scared to death. But they modeled calmness, and that's how we got through it. And I think that's the lesson. It's, you may be stressed out. Is there anybody you can help your child be around that's calm during these moments? Is there anything you can do to help your child realize, I know there's desecration, but look at the people who are banding together. Is there any way that you can show your child, we can do something? I know this is trauma, but let's figure out what we can do to make a difference. Those, what research says, are the best way to build resilience, because you're helping your child realize that there's hope. We got this.
I know that you have many, many resources that are available to people free.
Oh.
They're in the book. Do they go to your website? I know.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. If you go to my website is micheleborba.com. I'm a 1L Michelle, and Borba rhymes with Zorba. So there you go, micheleborba.com. If you go there, you'll get, first of all, a free asset survey that I think every parent says is the best thing I need. It's in Thrivers, but it also has about 120 strengths. You can figure out who your child is by looking at that. In fact, I've seen many parents with teens go, you do it over there, I'll do it. Then let's put them together and figure out if we have the same ideas. I did that on Dr. Phil, and it was like the audience went, oh my gosh, yeah, because the parent and the kid were working together with it. You can also, there's a book discussion guide. Many parents are doing this as book clubs together, so they're talking about it together. I don't care what the book is. If you talk about the content together, you're far more likely to implement the ideas. And then you can also get a list of just a quiz. And the quiz is, of the 7, which is your child's strength of the 7, or which is your strength as the 7, as the parent? Which one do you want to work on together as a family? Lots of ideas. Don't do them all, but just do one thing at a time. And that's how we raise a generation of thrivers, Madeline.
Fabulous. Michele Borba, thank you so much
for
being on Unlocked. Every now and then, there is something that changes how I think about the world. Grounds for Thought is a place where I talk about these moments so that you can explore the meaning for yourself. I couldn't believe it when my health provider recommended that I read the book called Breathe. Surely we all know how to breathe. After all, humans can't live without air for more than a few minutes. How can we not know how to breathe? Well, as it turns out, there is a lot to know about how to breathe. I was surprised and in the end delighted to learn more about how to breathe that actually helps my health be at its best. And today I want to talk about only one of the techniques that come from this book, Breathe, by James Nestor. It's a technique that he calls a slow technique of breathing. You breathe in to a count of 5 and breathe out to a count of 5. And I love the fact that as Michele Borba was talking about how the kids used breathing and the Navy SEALs use breathing, this is yet another technique, but it's another way to do it slowly. Anyway, when we are in unexpected situations, that surprise takes us, or disappointment, or there's a threat to us, we become anxious and our blood pressure rises. Our brains get foggy just at the times when we need to be operating at our best. So when do we need to be breathing at greatest efficiency? In the chapter called Slow, he talks about the time it takes to do chants, certain prayers, and other forms in various religions. The truly remarkable aspect of this is that across all of them, there is a remarkable timing that comes out at approximately 5.5 breaths a minute. Now, here are the traditions that he listed where he found these: Buddhism, Jainism, Native American, Taoist, Muslim, Hawaiian, African, Japanese, and yes, the Rosary of Roman Catholicism. He goes on to say, but what was even more stunning was that breathing like this, 5.5 breaths a minute, did to the subjects. Whenever they followed this slow breathing pattern, blood flow to the brain increased, and the systems in the body entered a state of coherence, when the functions of the heart, circulation, and nervous systems are coordinated to peak efficiency, unquote. When scientific experiments explored breathing rates and other medical conditions, the pattern that gave the most efficient breathing rate was, you guessed it, 5.5-second inhales followed by 5.5-second exhales, which works out to about, in fact, almost exactly 5.5 breaths a minute. Now, some of you may remember the founder of HeartMath. He was a previous guest on Unlocked. He comments that coherence and the heart, breath, and brain working together optimally. It's the same coherence that Nestor is talking about. The author of Breath's last sentence of that chapter is, quote, prayer heals, especially when it's practiced at 5.5 breaths a minute, unquote. I find that incredibly comforting in this time of stress and the need for personal control. Imagine if kids learned this simple breathing technique early in their lives so that it became a strong practice throughout their lives. Breathe in to a count of 5 and breathe out to a count of 5, slowly. Breathe by James Nestor. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and learned something new. You know, I often ask you for ideas, questions you would like to be answered, or topics you'd like to hear about on the show. My weekly update gives you the who and the what of upcoming shows, the link to the week's Mental Espresso, and gives you the vehicle to send me your comments and what you would like me to cover in the future. If you aren't already on my mailing list, please stop by my website and register for it on the contact page. I want to hear what's on your mind. And if you're on YouTube, click the like button. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. This helps me and it helps others who are looking for similar information. I'm Madeline Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilient leader.